This piece of Lisa is being brought to you by Mutual Security Credit Union. Find out more at mscu.com. A lot of people are criticizing our president now for being too reasonable and too moderate in his approach and too sensible and not sort of wresting the power of the presidency itself and creating a force of leadership behind him. Yesterday we had a guest on the show who referred to him as Mr. Breezy, who said that was his nickname in Europe. And in the meantime, David Cameron, who was leading the UK, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, has insisted that all the members of Parliament come back from their summer vacations and come back into session in London because have you been hearing about the rioting and fires that have been spreading in London for the last 3 nights? Today, the news is that they are ordering 16,000 troops into the city of London so that this can finally come to an end. And they're not exactly sure how it started. I mean, they think it started with one act that turned into many criminal acts. But what they do know is that the discontent has spread to anarchy throughout the suburbs of London, throughout the little neighborhoods of London. And it's a huge mess. And so what did David Cameron do? He decided, you know what, this is a crisis, and I don't care where you MPs are sitting in your vacation Riviera, wherever you are all over Brighton or the coast of England, you need to come back to the city of London and deal because the country's in crisis. President Obama is being accused of allowing Congress to stay on vacation when we are facing the same kind of crisis here. But you know what? The S&P rating per se is not the crisis. What the crisis is that the debt ceiling created a fevered pitch of we have to do something about debt. And in the end, we only did an anemic response and pushed off the problem further. I think that one of the problems with President Obama's presidency is that he seems to continue to govern by crisis. I think he created the healthcare frenzy into a crisis pitch. I think he creates every sort of fake thing that he needs to get done in terms of legislative policy into a fevered crisis pitch. And even though he speaks in measured tones, the problem with President Obama is that he says one thing and does another. Let me give you an example. A lot of people in the Hispanic community and elsewhere cast their vote for President Obama because he promised immigration reform, something that George Bush was not able to accomplish. But what did he do? He deported over 800,000 people in the last 2 years, which is just hugely more, really accelerating that which George Bush had already done and that which hadn't been done for years and years before. Saying one thing, doing another. If you really want immigration reform, are you going to deport 800,000 people in 2 years, summarily getting them on planes and taking them out of the country? That's just one example. One of the reasons I voted for President Obama is I thought I was voting for an environmental president. Well, this president has not been kind to the environment at all. This president has given the go-ahead for fracking. This president has given the go-ahead to drill in the Arctic region. This president has not cracked down on the tax giveaways and givebacks to oil companies and exploratory companies that exploit our natural resources. I'm extremely disappointed in the environmental record of President Obama. Saying one thing, doing another. Where are his core principles? We don't even have to start in with the Middle East. I think with the Middle East, frankly, I could have paid more attention to what he was saying and known what he was going to do. I think on that, I can't accuse him of being a hypocrite. He's doing exactly what his signals set out to do. Even though he courted the Jewish vote and courted the Jewish community, the truth is that there was enough information out there, if you wanted to look at it, to know that he really was going to be somebody who saw himself as a bridge to the Arab world and not somebody who was a defender of the interests of Israel. That's proven to be another level of disappointment, but not a surprise disappointment, just a disappointment nonetheless. And I think that President Obama is turning out to be the kind of a president who, on so many different levels, says one thing and does another. And what this particular author has said, I wish I could find his name, but it is on the Facebook link on the Lisa Wexler Newsmaker page. When I cut and pasted it for my show prep, for some reason the guy's name got cut off. But here's what this person says, and let me just read you a little bit, because he talks about the last time this country was really in trouble, which he harkens back to the 1930s. And he said, In similar circumstances, Franklin D. Roosevelt offered Americans a promise to use the power of his office to make their lives better and to keep trying until he got it right. Beginning in his first inaugural address, and in the fireside chats that followed, he explained how the crash had happened, and he minced no words about who had caused it. He promised to do something no president had done before, to use the resources of the United States to put Americans directly to work, building the infrastructure we still rely on today. He swore to keep the people who had caused the crisis out of the halls of power, and he made good on that promise. Now, he also said in a 1936 speech in Madison Square Garden, quote, "Never before in all our history have these forces been so united against one candidate as they stand today. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred." And that's the missing piece with President Obama. He doesn't welcome anybody's hatred. He appointed the revolving door of Goldman Sachs, the biggest perpetrators, and all the other bankers, the biggest perpetrators of the schemes and lies that crashed Wall Street and crashed the rest of Main Street. He appointed them to the highest echelons of cabinet positions in his administration. Who's his best friend? Jeffrey Immelt, the guy that heads up GE that paid no corporate income taxes last year because he spent $53 million lobbying Congress for special tax exemptions for General Electric. Is that the message that you want to send? President Obama, you couldn't have found some people that really were independent, that really had clean hands, that really didn't have any kind of history or any kind of involvement or contribution to the bad stuff that happened? This is the major disappointment to me. Saying one thing, doing another. Saying one thing about, the bad guys, and then trying to wheedle and kneadle money out of them for every single election. He has enough money. He raises $5, $5, $5 from all the little people. In the last quarter alone, he raised money from 600,000 people. He doesn't really need to kowtow to the big corporate money. Certainly not in the second time around. President Obama, if you're listening to me and you can find your voice and your core principles, of course there are going to be a lot of people that can't stand you, but the majority of people who voted for you are going to remember why. They're going to remember why. Do I think Obamacare was a mistake? I do. I do. But do I see a likelihood of it getting repealed? Unfortunately, no. Do I think it should be tweaked? Quite a bit.